Welcome back. Today, here in the shop, we're getting after a project that I know a lot of you have been waiting for quite a while. We pulled this car into the shop a few months ago and got it in position, and just recently I finally got it up in the air and have started taking a look underneath. I'm talking about the Forsyth Duster. For those of you who are not familiar with this project, I will share a little overview again after the intro, but for now I just do want to say that this is the first episode we're actually going to be putting some hands-on and eyes on this car with an eye towards what we're going to be really doing, not just a general overview. So let's just get into it. I'm Mike, and this is my car's shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is my car's shop.
One of the things about the stuff that we do here at My Car Shop is we share not only the work, but the thinking processes, and we also think things through and try to present things in a way that you can take what we do and apply it directly to the vehicle that you're working on. So maybe you're not working on a Duster, maybe you're working on a Chevelle, or maybe you're working on a Challenger, or maybe you're working on a 1972 Toyota. It doesn't matter, because the basic principles of automotive restoration and repair are pretty much all the same. It's just the details of how specific manufacturers put things together. So we try to hand fabricate a lot of stuff, particularly if you've seen the episodes on the Stitches Challenger, that almost that entire project is hand fabricated unibody parts made out of flat sheet metal. This car, we're going to take a little different approach. I try to showcase different ideas, different ways of doing things, and we're not going to be hand fabricating everything on this car like we have on the Challenger. Rather, on this car, we're going to be purchasing a lot of the parts and putting it together. There's several reasons for that I'll get into over time, but the first one is exactly that. It's time. I'm really up to my chin in the Stitches Challenger, and we're making huge progress on that car. But I have other cars here too. We have the Oakland that you're kind of looking over. We have the 69 Charger here. We have a 74 Swinger in the back room we haven't touched for 9 months. We have the 47 Ford over there, the 68 Dart Pro Street GTS. We have the 73 Swinger. We've got an 88 Dodge Power Ram 4x4. We've got a Cadillac CTS back here that I need to get put back together. That's kind of a hot rod, and I don't think you've even seen that car. So there's just a lot of stuff, and I'm realizing that time is of the essence. I'm not getting any younger. We want to get stuff done. I know. I talk. The first thing we're going to do is get you under the car, show you what we're dealing with on that Crossmember, kind of come up with a game plan on how we want to remove it. We need to get stuff out of the interior, and then hopefully we'll have some time today to put some grinder or cutter or, I don't know, something onto this car and start working on something. We're not really intending to accomplish a whole lot today, but we're intending to get our hands dirty and just kind of get started. I almost said get farted, which has its place, I suppose. And that's one of the things that you guys ask me is, where do you get started on something like this? Well, you start exactly in the place you start. Doesn't matter where. Start with something and work from there. One of the big challenges in having this many projects with a shop that we should probably only have 2 cars in, but we have 4. Almost had 5 in here this winter, but I actually got up off the ground after falling and bumping my head and realized that was kind of a crazy idea. But anyway, it's being able to really see what's going on. So we got some stuff inside the car I want to get out of there. Then we're going to start looking at this torsion bar crossmember from underneath and from above to determine exactly what we need to do to replace it. There's been a lot of controversy here on the channel about the mileage on this car, and I don't quite frankly care one way or the other what somebody believes. We're not trying to make the car something it's not. The odometer mileage is 9,200 miles. The car looks like it's got about 300,000 miles on it, but if you understand Michigan particularly, and you understand A-bodies, there's some pretty reasonable explanations. First of all, this car was a drag car, so the numbers of miles on things like key, clutch pedal, brake pedal, it's probably 100,000 miles worth of wear because it was unusual the way it was driven. But the miles were put on a quarter mile at a time over 10 years, and that's really all the car was driven. So while we're not trying to pass it off, as a low mileage car to sell, we will come to accept the fact that it was driven really hard. It was put away wet, literally. It was stored on wet ground, well, for many, many years, which is where a lot of this rot comes from. And a lot of this other rot comes from the fact that A-bodies are notorious for leaking in the cowl area. In fact, I can show you on the 73 Swinger, the floor doesn't look much different than this. It's a project that I need to take care of. And I really think that's what's happened here, is this car had the interior in it for many, many years, and the carpet got soaked because of a leaking cowl, and the windshield wiper seals leak on these cars, and that's probably mostly why this floor was rotted out, because it was wet on both sides. So that's how this torsion bar crossmember rotted out, I'm quite sure. And it is rotted out. The car was setting level when we loaded it on the trailer to bring it here, and then just driving down the road for 30 miles, bouncing on the trailer, the torsion bar ripped out. So the torsion bar crossmember is right in here, and of course we have our 3-speed hump, or 4-speed hump. This was a 3-speed car. We're going to end up putting floor pans in this for sure. I think we can leave that section of floor, so I'm going to get some prices on 3 sections of floor pan to replace this piece and the piece over there, which we're going to need to cut a lot of this out anyway to be able to do the torsion bar crossmember. I've been under the car before, but we're going to go down under there now and look things over a little better. It does have subframe connectors on this car, which I'm sure has helped keep it from going like this, although the rockers do seem to be pretty solid. But the frame rails seem to be okay. I haven't taken my hammer down there, so we're going to do that. Hopefully we don't have to get into any frame rail work. But one way or another, we're going to get this car back together and drivable. My little pointy thing here, and you can kind of follow along with the tutorial that I'm giving here. The frame looks okay. We're going to go ahead and tap on it again. I haven't done that yet. But this is what happens. Very common, especially when the floor rots out and it's getting a lot of water above up here, is it just starts to rot this out. And of course the torsion bar mount has just completely ripped out. The other side over here, which you can't see, I'll turn you there in a second, is not far behind it. The complication here, because this was a drag car, and I can see that the inner rocker panel is, we're going to have to do some work. That's unfortunate. You can't see that, but maybe you can over there. No, I don't think you can, because this torsion, or this subframe connector is in the way. The inner rocker is shot, even though the outer rocker is actually decent. So we probably are going to have to cut the rockers off, either put new rocker panels on, or put them back on, but put new inner rockers, because that's where the strength is in this thing. Fortunately, this car has subframe connectors, so that makes it kind of a pain in the tush for us to replace this cross member here because of these things. But on the other hand, it does make our life easier as well, because this car has kept its rigidity because of this box tube that they put in there. Let's let you see the other torsion bar mount. So here's the other torsion bar mount, and you can see how that is just we're on the verge of busting out of there. As bad as this piece was, I could have made it, but again, in the interest of time, we decided to just go ahead and get the parts and put it together. It showcases different things on the channel for you, and it also just saves a ton of time. We're not going to have a boatload of time into this, but we are going to have some time cutting things apart above to be able to get at everything. But we've got to replace that floor anyway, so it's no big deal. Let's get the frame checker out here, whack on that frame on both sides, and just double check, make sure everything is as solid as I think it is. I think the first thing I want to do is get this 3-speed, 4-speed hump out of here so that we can just cut the rest of the floor out. I'm not going to be too careful about that because, well, I'm not going to hurt the hump any, but I'm just going to cut it around on the floor itself to get stuff out of the way because we're going to be replacing that floor anyway. I want to look at how the replacement floor panels come just to be sure, that I can fabricate anything we need. So, you know my skill set here. It's not a big deal. But I still want to be smart about it. Like I'm not going to cut into the hump here. I'm going to cut the floor back here and go up and around. I don't want to cut into the tunnel up here. So I'll take and, well, I'm just going to show you. Why am I talking about it? Gotta take more time talking about it than to just do it.
Let's just do it. Do it now.
So there's lots of this seam sealer crap on here that I need to scrape off. Some of it comes off easy. Some of it doesn't. But we just got to go through and get all that stuff out of the way so I can find out the seams and then determine where I'm going to cut around for this shifter hump thingy that we got to take out. Looks like most of this is pretty loose. I brought a propane torch over here because sometimes I just use that on there. It helps loosen things up. We may need to, we may not. For the most part, it looks like this is coming pretty loose. Couple things that I'm thinking. Of course, we got this out of here now, and it looks like it's in good shape, so we can put that in the sandblasting cabinet and get it all cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and cut the floor out at least around the torsion bar crossmember so that we can get access to that. Well, I'm quite surprised at how soft that is. Usually they're hard as a brick. So yeah, we'll do that. We've got to peel it off of the frame, but it's not going to take much to get this out of here, but we need to make room to put the new one in. And then I'm going to need to make the decision on whether or not we're just going to put the whole floor pan in, or if we're going to put in pieces. I'm for the money and the time, it's about $600 plus shipping just to put this entire pan in here, and that may be the way to do it. I got to think about it a little bit, but that would be the fastest. We could just take out the quarter windows on one side and take out the quarter window on one side and just slip a whole floor pan in here once this old one's out. But for now, I'm just going to make myself access to the crossmember by cutting and chipping it off the frame here. I don't want to cut the frame, so that we can see on both sides exactly what we're dealing with. already see we're going to have to do some frame rail work back here, but we can patch that up. I'm quite sure the frame is pretty solid. But it is full of regrets and mouse nests and just really bad stuff. So I need to go in there and suck all that out of the frame rails. I didn't trim that one back as far as this side, but I'm really leaning towards just the whole floor pan and being done with it. That'll be the fastest. It's just literally slam it in, trim it, weld it, hammer, dolly, lather, rinse, repeat, and get it in there. But let's get this frame sucked out and see exactly what we're dealing with here. Oh look, a screw. We're doing a light test to see if there's any light showing through there, and there's not. So this frame is pretty solid. We'll double check it when we get it on the rotisserie, but it looks good inside. Don't see any major issues in there. And so we got a lot of this pulled up now. I'm leaving that just for a little teeny bit of structural support right in here right now. Of course, our subframe connector is tied in right here, so we're going to have to zip that off and zip it off the frame. But once we have the new K-member here, or the new torsion bar cross member here, we will have this car supported differently, and we will just slice this thing out of here to save everything that we want to save, and then slip the new one in. By that point, this will be gone, so we can drop the new one right in there. Probably from above is the way I'm thinking we will do it. Yes, we will, because as you see, it kind of is at a taper this way on both sides on the rocker panels. We will probably also look at welding some rocker panel gussets in there to give that extra strength, so there'll be some massaging and tweaking to do there, but we really want to make sure that we have good strength here. Let's take you over to the other side now and show you what we got going on. Okay, so down in here you can see all those holes up there, down in through here. Now we could just ignore all of that and put some duct tape over it, but we probably won't. We'll go ahead and probably patch. Most of this is solid, the rest of the place that I can see. We'll look at it more in depth, but it won't take much to just make a frame rail patch that will go, because from about up in here, the frame rail is good all the way forward as far as I can tell. So we'll just patch this up and give it a lot of strength and fix it up. Will be no problem at all. Let's let you see inside now. There you go. So you can see inside that frame rail. It's not bad, but it's got a few pinholes. It was literally full of rust, which was mostly the floor. Kind of fell down all in there, and then there was a mouse nest in there. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it that the frame rail on this side here would be a little bit worse than the one over there, because that floor was not nearly as rotted, which means probably this and the cowl up in there was not leaking as bad on the passenger side as it was on the driver's side, and soaking the carpet, and just doing what A bodies do, which is so typical of an A body to do this. Well, that's a good step forward. We got a better handle on what we're dealing with. I've got to wrap my brain around how I want to support this car before we cut out that cross member, because so much of the floor is gone. Things are going to be a little flimsy. I've got some ideas. I don't know if I have enough jack stands here. I know I've got another set that one of my friends is donating to the channel here, and I've got to get with him, and I may just run up and buy a couple more big ones. We'll see, but I need to get this car supported in places that is not going to start moving when we cut this out. Not a big deal, but again, it's one of those things where when I get to this point, I like to just stop spend some time thinking things through and just let my brain work on it until I go, yeah, that's the way I'm going to do that. It's not like I haven't done a ton of this stuff before. It's just there's always things that are different, like where this frame is rotted, for example, or the way the floor pan is rotted. And so instead of putting this in from underneath, which is a pain in the butt, but could be done if we didn't have subframe connectors on it, putting it in from above, and just lots of different things. So we've obviously got a little more stripping down to do. We got to get the torsion bars out of there, things like that. We may pull some of the front suspension out, but I want to get this car kind of on its jacks where I want it here, and I need to spend some time thinking about that first. So I can't emphasize that enough. No matter how long you've been doing this stuff, take time to think things through. Take the time to just ponder, give your brain time to work on stuff. Because there's things you miss, especially when you're like me and you're working by yourself all the time. It's easy to overlook things. There was just something the other day that I was looking at, I think it was when Dad and I were working on the Oakland, and he said, well, why don't you do this? Because I didn't think of that. There's a lot to process when you're doing this stuff, and so that's just the way it is. So if you're doing these projects, it's always good to get another set of eyes. There are people that I would call and say, hey, can you come over and take a look at this? Give me your thoughts on this, that, or the other thing. Stuff that I've done like this before. I still like to take time to think through. That's as far as I'm going today for those very reasons. I like to get it to a point. Now I've seen what I got to deal with. We've got to patch the back part of the frame horn on this side. No big deal. I'm probably not even going to do that now. I just know it needs to be done. The plan is to put this car on the rotisserie after the Challenger comes off. Get it up on its side so we can really work on getting things cleaned up underneath, just to prevent them from rusting further. I think we're going to go ahead and order an entire floor pan and just put it all in there at once. There's one section on that side that just for future projects, I'm probably going to be kind of careful cutting out because it's something we may be able to use on another project at some point. I don't know, but that's where we're going today. So that's going to do it for this episode. We're over on the Face thing. We're on your Instagramma/mycarshop. I think that does it. I hope you're enjoying just getting started here on the Forsyth Duster. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this, and I really felt like it was time to really get moving. I needed a break from all the work we've been doing on the Challenger. I've been at that car hot and heavy for weeks, and it was just good to focus on something else and let my brain work on something else. That's going to do it. All right, and don't forget, rock!